Mr. and Mrs. Johnson live the same life, and they do everything together, from reading to exercising together, and even having the same diet. Despite this,
oh look, it's our niece. I don't have a niece.
Miss Johnson has Alzheimer's disease.
If the Johnsons generally lived the same life, how did only Miss Johnson develop the disease?
Well, what is Alzheimer's? Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disorder that slowly destroys memory, thinking skills, and the ability to carry out simple tasks, and usually worsens over time with age.
Well, if they're the same age, how come only the wife got it?
That is because Alzheimer's disease is more prevalent in women than men due to multiple biological, hormonal, and historical influences. Here's some evidence.
Biologically, one of the strongest genetic risk factors for Alzheimer's in women is the APO gene on chromosomes, which encodes a protein responsible for transporting cholesterol and other lipids in the brain and the body. There are 3 major variants of this gene, including APO2, which protects the brain against Alzheimer's, APO3, which is neutral, and then APO4, which is the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's. If a woman carries the APO4 gene, then during menopause, when her estrogen levels greatly decrease, the gene will worsen, as estrogen is the key protective mechanism that counteracts the harmful effects of APO4. This leads to a rapid decrease in the transport of cholesterol in the brain, which will increase the woman's risk for neural brain dysfunction and pathological synapses loss, overall leading to severe memory impairment. Women's hormones also have a huge effect on their memory due to cellular aging increase during a woman's menopause due to tiny structures called telomere shortening, which are protective caps against DNA damage at the end of our chromosomes. Women often start off with longer telomeres than men because estrogen normally helps protect them, keeping their length. Over time, telomeres will naturally decrease in both men and women, but are accelerated during a woman's menopause because hormone levels change and estrogen declines rapidly. This in turn accelerates cellular aging and the brain's vulnerability to diseases like Alzheimer's.
Within menopause, there is the tipping point. What is the tipping point? The tipping point is a point in menopause where the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease change drastically. This is the baseline that marks the transition from a preclinical asymptomatic stage to a clinical stage. This is when cognitive deterioration starts to take place. Women may also resist the AD-related proteins longer than men, which can delay symptoms. However, this also leads to them experiencing a greater decline as the disease progresses, as it then becomes more aggressive. The AD-related proteins mentioned before would be tau tangle proteins and amyloid beta plaques. Tau proteins normally stabilize the structures inside nerve cells, but as they become abnormal, they form tangles within the brain that could lead to cell damage and death. Amyloid beta proteins clump together to form sticky plaques between nerve cells, disrupting cell communication.
Women are also more likely to develop depression, which in itself increases Alzheimer's risk due to hormonal influences throughout their life. Biologically, estrogen and progesterone strongly influence neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which regulate mood. Fluctuations in these hormones happen a lot during processes like pregnancy, postpartum, puberty, menstrual cycles, and menopause, which alter systems that can raise Alzheimer's vulnerability in women. Many societies also have historical evidence of women having lower educational opportunities than men due to mainstream societal norms that for a long expected time women do not have an education so that they could care for their families. This over time created a natural reduced cognitive reserve, which is the brain's ability to stay strong despite damages and diseases in female populations. This lower cognitive reserve is often passed through generations through environmental and developmental factors like parents' education and cognitive engagement shaping the home environment, social economic ripple effects like saying that women are historically going to have lower educational opportunities, which will lower their income, which means that less resources for new generations to improve their cognitive reserve, and even cultural transmissions as cultural norms and values are modeled and transmitted through generations.
Despite all this evidence, research for women with Alzheimer's still lags. In fact, a lot of people don't realize that even though women make up most Alzheimer's cases, there are actually very little research focused specifically on them. According to the Alzheimer's Association, women are about 2/3 of all Alzheimer's patients, but most of the early studies of Alzheimer's were based on male biology. That means for decades, we were trying to understand a disease in women using data that didn't even represent them. This lack of research can be seen in a 1990 study through Harvard's medical school, where they discovered the lack of inclusivity scientists had when researching memory loss, ignoring connections between Alzheimer's and factors like menopause, estrogen, and sex-related brain aging. This shows how research has been disregarding huge biological factors that affect women when having research conversations.
Scientific research is also prioritizing men economically. 12%, which is $280 million of the $2.4 billion in the NIH Alzheimer's research budget, went to studying just women. That's like spending $3 in research on each woman over 35 and $24 on each man.
Despite this finding, sex-related studies have not improved or advanced in numbers enough. Women are the majority of people living with Alzheimer's, but the science we rely on still doesn't fully censor them. Therefore, women-specific Alzheimer's studies need to become implemented in science now.
Instead of excluding women in research, then you could have faster advancement in the detection, treatment, and care of Alzheimer's disease across the clinical spectrum. Greater attention to these differences will improve outcomes for both sexes. Evidence to support that both sex and gender affect the etiology, presentation, and treatment outcomes of many diseases.
Alzheimer's disease does not affect everyone the same. Biological, hormonal, and historical evidence proves that women and men clearly have differences in the way this disease progresses, and science lacks to acknowledge this.
If scientists invest in sex-specific research, a whole new world of tailored treatments could be discovered, and we could open the door to earlier disease detection and prevention.
As we move forward in research, let's focus on the biological evidence, not just the averages. Let's advocate for studies that include diverse populations, ask inclusive questions, and explore different ways diseases and treatments work in women and men.
Thanks for watching and being a part of the future scientific world where Alzheimer's research is smarter, more inclusive, and more effective.